Hello, my name is Shelly Keniston, and I'm the Director of Off-Campus and Commuter Student Services here at Bridgewater State University. We're going to talk to you today about finding an off-campus apartment and living in the town of Bridgewater. I have some co-presenters with me that I'd like to introduce themselves. So Katie, will you start us off?
Hi, I'm Katie. I'm a sophomore here at Bridgewater. I'm studying early childhood education and psychology. I'm a commuter ambassador for this new office on campus, and I live in an off-campus apartment right now. I live with two roommates that I met in my residence hall last year, and next year I'm going to be commuting from home, so it's about a 30-minute ride, so a little bit different than this year.
Andrew?
Hi there. My name is Andrew. I'm currently a senior at BSU majoring in economics, so I'll be graduating this May. I lived off campus. Well, I'm also a commuter ambassador for this awesome office, but I lived off campus my sophomore, junior year, and then my extra year. So I spent 5 years here at BSU, but I spent 3 of those years off campus in 3 different apartments. I had a lot of different roommates, and yeah.
Jason?
Hi, my name is Jason Brogan. I am a BSU alumni. I graduated in class of '98, and I am also an owner in Bridgewater. I own about 24 units, and I've done college rentals, student college rentals for about 20 years, and hope to be able to provide folks some information about finding apartments and information around how to rent and what to look for.
Great. And last, Ray?
Hi, I'm Ray Hurto. I'm a landlord in Bridgewater. I have 6 units there. And as Jay also said, here to help and provide some insight into what it's like to rent an off-campus apartment.
Great. So that's our lineup for today, and we're going to jump right in and get started. First, I want to start with, where do you even look for an apartment coming to Bridgewater? We have a database that landlords post to that has local apartments. And the good thing is these are landlords who only rent to college students. So you know that the apartments are designed with the college students in mind. That is linked off our webpage, so it's easy to find, and the link is here. And it's where we direct students to look first prior to moving on to some of the other places. Some other students have told me that other places they have looked include local newspapers, Craigslist, Zillow. There are some realtors in the area that rent apartments and could be of assistance. And then also some of the realtors post right on the housing database. In terms of looking for roommates, you should join the BSU mobile app. There is a section on the app for new bears or new transfers. And then also there's a section for roommates and commuters. So those are all places to see if someone's looking for roommates, if someone is in need of one, or you could post that you are looking for a space or some roommates as well. So these are some of the best tips in terms of kind of where to get started and where to start looking. A couple of things here is just, we listed some of the towns because if you are new to Bridgewater and not really familiar with the area, it's hard to know distance-wise and what might be best for you. So, of course, we love to have you in the town, East and West Bridgewater. And then there's a list of other towns that are close to us, very commutable, and gives you just a starting point if you are looking for something. Next, we're going to jump into talking about the lease agreement and several other things, and we're going to turn it over in a second to the landlords. But there are a few things to know available to you is the Massachusetts tenant rights, which is something that you should be familiar with. It's accessible off my website. and then accessible off the Massachusetts website as well. A couple of things that you should know is you can't have more than 3 unrelated people living in an apartment. So you'll find that a lot of the apartments are limited to 3 individuals. They will require a parent and guardian co-signature for a lot of them. Apartments are not furnished, but we do provide you with a link to a furniture rental company where they'll come in and set up your apartment for you before you get there, and then come and pick the stuff back up if buying furniture isn't in your long-term plans just yet. And then different apartments have different amenities, so it's really taking a look at what exists. So we're going to start right now with Jay Brogan. He's going to talk to you about some key points being a long-term renter for us. So Jay?
Thanks, Shelley. So I'll talk about some key things, and I know that Ray will touch on some additional items about looking for an apartment. But typically, for myself, I have about 24 units between my father, my brother, and myself in Bridgewater, in and around the college. And leases, depending on the landlord or the housing complex, and perhaps the manager or whoever's trying to rent those apartments out, we actually start showing apartments in October for the following year. And we usually finalize leases between December and February, and then the leases, our leases start June 1st, and they typically go to May 30th or May 31st of the following year. And again, we finalize those leases around the 15th of January, pretty much every year. And it's pretty much first come, first served. So we show hundreds of students' apartments throughout the course of the year, between October and March or October and May. And typically what we'll say is, whatever group can come up with the deposit first is going to be able to get that apartment. I don't have an application that we use, just because the students typically have their parents co-sign the lease. So the lease terms, some tips. It's really important that you read the lease. More often than not, students, at least over the past 20 years, I've been renting to students in Bridgewater, don't always read the lease. And more often than not, they don't read the lease. So it's very, very important that the students read the lease. If people are living off campus, a lot of times this is their first experience renting an apartment, and it's their first experience actually signing a lease. And it's important to note the lease is a legal contract, so you should always read that contract more than once so you understand what's in it. And if you aren't sure about the terms in the lease, or if you have questions, you should absolutely reach out to the landlord before you sign anything. I think I touched upon leases typically run 12 months. Some places they might rent for 9 months, but at least in my apartments we do 12 months. You want to decide how long you want to rent for before you set up a showing, right? And you want to make sure you communicate that to the potential landlord and let them know, because I would say probably most landlords rent out for a 12-month time period. So you want to make that clear. And then if you're renting out for 12 months and you want to offset some of your costs, I have an option where I'll let the students sublet the apartment to other students who might be taking summer classes at Bridgewater, and that seems to work out pretty well. And then before you sign a lease, you definitely want to make sure that you're reviewing the rules and regulations with your roommates. Make sure everyone understands what those rules and regulations are, especially around the state and town ordinances regarding noise violations and parties and whatnot. I know, Bridgewater in general has cracked down over the years around parties, and it's important to know that, you're a part of the community, just like you are on campus. When you're living on campus, you're part of the community. When you take an apartment off campus, you are also part of the community, and it's important that you respect the neighbors and everybody else in the town. Otherwise, it's going to cause problems. But it's, again, make sure you're reviewing those rules and regulations with the roommates. And then viewing apartments and listings. When you're setting up an apartment or want to set up an appointment with a landlord or an owner, it's important to know that they probably have to give 24-hour notice before they can get you in there. So if you're contacting them and say, hey, I want to get in there tomorrow, you might want to plan out ahead a little bit, a couple of days out, and just understand that the landlord is probably going to have to give at least 24 hours notice to get into the apartment. considering the current situation that we're in with this pandemic, you know, the state does not want people showing apartments, you know, at this point in time. So what I've done is gone through and done a lot of videos of the apartments and posted them up on the website that's shown on the right side of the screen here, or right side of the slide. Among, you know, also putting up pictures of all the apartments as well. So when you call to set up an appointment with a landlord, you just want to make sure you give them your cell phone number, and then confirm or text with the landlord before you show up at the property, just to make sure no one's forgotten about appointments or someone's going to be late. It's always good to make sure you're confirming that. And then just another place where you can look for apartments in Bridgewater is on Zillow. I use Zillow. I know if you go on there, you'll find a lot of apartments right around the college area that are for rents, and you can post pictures and videos up there, or the landlords can post pictures and videos up there as well. And it's a good place to just pop your information in there, and you can communicate back and forth with the landlord on Zillow as well through the messaging application. So on the right side, I did put a flyer up here. This is one of about 6 or 7 properties that I have available right now. And then the price ranges for these apartments go from anywhere from $1,600 to $2,100 a month, depending on the number of bedrooms. And like I said, the leases typically run from June 1st to May 29th or 30th on any given year. Shelley, so that's all I had. Want to
Great.
go over to Ray?
Yeah, thank you, Jay. Ray, you're up.
Thanks, Shelley. Yeah, I'll try not to repeat too many things that Jay had said. So just a little bit about me. I've got 6 units. They're in one building, and I've been a landlord there for about almost 3 years now. So I know what it was like to be a college student. I was one not too long ago, so it's interesting being on the other side of the coin, as they say. So I'd say the most important thing I've learned working with students at Bridgewater is just make sure that you have everybody organized and ready to go. As Jay had mentioned, you know, sometimes we have people come through and do showings, and they say, well, I've got 2, but it's a 3-bedroom, and we've got to find a 3rd. It's really important to make sure you've got all your roommates together, and everybody is looking at it, ideally, if they can, at the same time, so they can all look at the spaces, maybe pick which person's going to get which bedroom. And then more importantly, because our leases require co-signers, and many other leases of landlords in the town would require co-signers as well, which basically means if you're not paying the lease rent, then someone else is, typically a parent or a guardian or someone else. So just make sure that they're all on board, because we've had a couple instances where someone will come through and they'll say, oh, well, my parents didn't actually know, and now we can't rent from you. And so we try not to inconvenience the current tenants, and we try and say, you know, imagine if you're living there, and as Jay had mentioned, you know, we need to give 24 hours notice, so we wouldn't want to inconvenience current tenants any more than we have to for the sake of showings. So on top of that, know your budget. So the price that's shown is not just what you're going to pay. Off-campus apartments don't come with meal plans or anything like that. So certain buildings will have certain utilities included, and some will have certain utilities excluded. Typical, it would be, you know, your rent, and then plus any utilities if you're going to have internet. I think, as Shelley mentioned, if you're going to be buying some furniture, that sort of thing. So make sure you just kind of put it on pen and paper. I'd say generally find like 3 or 5 apartments. You know, make a short list of what looks good. Listings with photos are much better than listings without photos. So we try to make sure that we have a listing there. As Jay has, we have a website as well. And then reach out. You know, again, confirm the lease dates. Our leases run from from August until July. So I think you'll find that there's a variety of landlords out there with different lease start and end dates. So as Jay had mentioned, that's important to pay attention to. And the same goes for us with reiterating with, you know, the owners or the agents or property managers, whoever's doing the tour. Just make sure you stay in communication with them. I'm not sure why, but ghosting seems to be a thing that has happened quite a bit lately. And when you go to actually view the apartment, you know, ask when you're there, but it's great to take notes and take photos so you can remember, oh, this apartment had this fixture in the bathroom, or had this for the floors in the bedroom. Just kind of get a, you know, after you see 3 or 5 different places, they kind of all start to blur in your head. So you'll want to make sure that you can remember what's what. You know, are the rooms equally sized? Things to take note of when you're there. Are what's included with the rent? Is there parking? If there is, how many spaces? And is there laundry in the unit or in the building? Again, all important things to know. And then lastly, when you make your decision, don't have to beat a horse dead here. Ask for the lease and the addendums and read them. I can't reiterate that enough, along with what Jay had said. And confirm what's due and when it's due. So some landlords will require a certain amount of money when you sign the lease. For us, we do first and last at signing, and then a security deposit prior to move-in, so you can get your keys. And that's pretty much it. And then, you know, once you've made your decision, you know, as a courtesy, just let the people who didn't get chosen, just let them know that they didn't, so that they're not following up with you, because, you know, we will generally try to follow up, and, you know, we don't want to be a pain in the butt. So our units are between, so it's 6 units on 3 floors, and they range from $19.95 a unit to $23.25. Our showings start around December, and they go until March. And as Jay said, you know, it's first come, first serve. So hand it back over to you, Shelley. Thank you.
Great. Thank you both so much. Now we're going to hear from our 2 students, Katie and Andrew, who are going to talk about renting from the student side. So Katie and Andrew.
Hi. So just a couple things that I know I and probably Andrew had to go through and think about when we were looking for apartments. Definitely, as both Jay and Ray mentioned, budgeting is a huge part of it. You have to make sure you know, like, you have to pay for groceries and some utilities, Wi-Fi, like if you want cable. That's another thing to look at with your roommates too. Something that could be helpful is maybe coming up with like a contract with your roommates, saying like, okay, we're gonna split groceries, I'm gonna do these chores, I'm gonna clean this once a week, stuff like that, just to make sure you guys are on the same page and so you don't get in any arguments or anything. Also, like the landlords had mentioned, you want to look at more than one apartment so you can have an idea of what you want and what you're not really looking for. What's included, definitely like a laundry unit, that's really helpful to have in your apartment. Parking, if you all have cars, you want off-street parking, that's important to mention to the landlord that you're interested in, or it might be like an important part of what you're looking for, maybe if the apartment's farther away from campus.
Yeah, so Katie, that's all exactly what I was going to say. But so with the budgeting, I really have to emphasize this. When you live at home or when you live on campus and you transition into an off-campus apartment, you show up to your apartment and there's nothing there. There's no kitchen supplies, there's no groceries, there's nowhere to sit, nowhere to put your TV, there's no bed. Like, you have to think about all of these things before. Living off campus sounds awesome, it sounds great, but when you show up to your new apartment, you don't have a bed to sleep in, that's a problem. And beds aren't cheap, and this is why you have to think about, and we suggest that you don't live off campus until you have some experience living in a dorm room, at least. So just keep that in mind before you start planning to live off campus, because it sounds awesome and all that stuff. And again, when you're looking at more than one apartment, cross-reference everything between each apartment. So you compare the prices. Jay and Ray both have all the information on their flyers. So laundry is included. If it's not included, on and off-street parking. And just go over that with your roommates. Like, do we need laundry? Do we need parking? How many cars are going to be there? And then two, so ask other tenants about their experiences. If you have friends who live off campus or a peer, like, just reach out to them and let them know that, hey, I'm thinking about moving off campus, and have you had this person as a landlord? What was the property like? Do you have a good experience? And all 3 years I've had great experiences so far. I'm graduating this year, so ended on a good note. But if you know tenants especially, you could offer to take some of their stuff. I mean, only if they're okay with it and you're not worried about using someone else's hand-me-downs. But if you're trying to save money, I know in the past that I moved into an apartment that I had friends who lived there before who were graduating, and instead of assisting them throw away the couch and all that stuff like that, we were like, yeah, we'll take it. We know the people who had it. They're clean enough that we'll keep it. So just some things to think about when you're moving in and trying to reach out to other tenants. Sometimes the tenants are the best people to reach out to before a landlord. And then a couple more things I wrote down off the top of my head. Leases don't stop when school stops. So lease terms go for 12 months usually. So when you have school, they mentioned how you have to have, not have to, but you should think about having a sublet roommate come in and rent that apartment if you're not going to be there over the summer, because the rent doesn't stop. And once you sign that lease, that's it. You have to pay in August, even if you're not there. You have to pay in December, before Christmas. Like it's a contract, and it's meant to bind you both together, or your roommates together, to make sure you pay the landlords, and because the landlords have bills to pay as well. And then one more piece on parking. Carpool tags are free at BSU. If you have your roommates and you have a similar schedule, the parking office will actually allow you to have a carpool tag for free and share one car and one tag and park anywhere on campus, basically. I'm pretty sure you can park anywhere besides Tinsley with that carpool pass. That's it for me. Shelley?
So a couple of things just in response to what you heard. We do have some of the things as resources on our website. So we have a packing list. So it's something that you can take a look at, and it's specific to moving into an apartment for the first time versus into a residence hall or dorm room for the first time. Things you want to take into consideration. And then I moved forward a slide because Andrew had already started to talk to you about carpooling and how those tags, that's a cost that you can cut a little bit. It is an option, so that hang tag is free if you have someone with a similar schedule. But just to list a couple of more things to consider in terms of getting to Bridgewater, to get to your classes and all the other things that you're going to do. We are on the train, the commuter rail line. So if you are in one of the areas coming into Bridgewater that is a commuter rail stop, that's an option. We do have a bike program. We have a bus that traverses campus several times. So if you parked in one of the further out lots, there's a bus if it's bad weather or you're running short on time. And then there's a discount. So if you find you're not living close enough to campus to walk and you need a pass, then we call it early bear discount. So if you buy it during the summertime, the dates are usually on the website. If you buy it in the summertime, it's a $50 discount. So it's a way to save a little bit of money if you do need to drive to Bridgewater. The next thing is just to talk about actually living in the town and being part of the community. So highly recommend that you are joining the Facebook page for the town that you're living in. You never know, different events, different things that are happening. So any town you live in, you should join that. If you're living in Bridgewater, and even if you're not, as you're commuting through, find out a list of the businesses available that takes the Connect card and your Flex dollars. So that is something you definitely want to know. Meet your neighbors. So whether they're fellow BSU students or not, it's a good idea to be on good terms with your neighbors either way. And then knowing the laws and your responsibilities. So I take you back to the Mass Tenants' Rights. I've had a number of students contact me to ask if what's happening in their apartment is legal or not, and that's what I refer to myself, so that's what I want to refer to them to. And I don't know if Katie or Andrew or Jay or Ray, you have other tips for living in or being part of the community that you live in that you would share outside of that.
I would say, I've noticed that living here, everyone's really nice. all my neighbors, like if I'll go outside and take a walk or something, everyone says hi, and I feel like just really take advantage of that and like reach out. And like Shelley said, like it's really useful to meet your neighbors even if they're not students. Like one of my neighbors, even if it's just like during a storm, hey, did you lose power? Or something like that. It's just very helpful to have someone that you can lean on in a way that's closer than your landlord.
Yeah, I really liked Andrew's tip about if you know somebody where you're moving into or somebody in that building and you want to, not throw another bed or couch into the landfill just yet, or a table, that can be super helpful. And I also reiterate, get to know the people inside your building if it's a multifamily building, just like you would a dorm. We want everybody to get along and hope that they do. So.
Great.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Okay. So in terms of coming to Bridgewater and living off campus, there's a lot of possibilities, a lot of opportunity to do so. And these tips from our students who have experienced it and from 2 of the landlords that we work with, I hope you found the information helpful. And just real quick to my fellow presenters, does anyone have any last minute tips or things for the students to consider?
If you ever need anything, if you're living off campus, if you're commuting, this office, even though it's new, it's a really good resource. We have a lot of good information we can give you. Even just sending like a DM on Instagram or a message on Facebook or calling the office or sending an email, it might answer a lot of your questions. So don't hesitate to reach out if you're wondering about something.
Shelley, I just wanted to take a second and thank you for the opportunity to participate in your presentation.
Of course.
And we look forward to working with all the students that contact us about renting off campus.
Great. Thank you, everyone, for participating. And this last slide just shares with you some of the resources, the contact information for our office, and we'll be able to help you out even more. So feel free to follow along on Facebook or Instagram, give us a call or email us, and we can put you in contact with anyone. I hope that you come to Bridgewater and join us, and we are here to help if you need anything. Thank you. Bye-bye.